Us now on Al Jazeera is Catherine Russell, who is the Executive Director of UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Agency. She's live from Cairo. Ms. Russell, thank you very much for being on Al Jazeera. You've been able to visit the Gaza Strip. You traveled to Khan Younis. You've just returned. Can you describe to us the situation there first? What did you see and what did you hear?
Yes, as you said, I was able to go into Gaza yesterday. I visited the Nasser hospital in Khan Younis, and what I saw there was so striking. It was just such an incredible number of people around the hospital and also in the hospital, people who were taking refuge there. As I walked down the hallways, there were people who had kind of blankets and pillows and were really sleeping there and staying there. And, you know, the one striking thing was that, you know, there were a lot of children there, and children being children, they were still finding ways to play and sort of, you know, find some lightness in their situation. But it's obviously a very desperate situation for all the people who are there, trying to find some, you know, safety in the hospital and to stay there and to try to, you know, spend as much time there as they can before they're able, hopefully, to go back home.
Yeah, the impact of this conflict on children has been devastating. And right now we have babies at Al Shifa hospital, premature babies who are at risk of dying because there's no oxygen. There's an ongoing Israeli raid there. What is UNICEF doing to help protect not just these babies, but the children of Gaza?
Yeah, well, it's, you know, you make a really important point at the outset, which is conflict and situations like this are always terrible for children and for babies, always, because they're very vulnerable and they depend on government services. And so in any situation around the world, we see that children are particularly vulnerable, and we advocate as hard as we can to try to help those children. We do have staff in Gaza. I met with some of them yesterday, got to spend some time with them and heard how challenging it is, but also the good work they're trying to do of, you know, setting up some water treatment centers and things. So UNICEF is there. We're trying to help for sure, but all of these situations of conflict are terribly destabilizing for children and very difficult and challenging for us to work in.
Yeah, but what about these babies at Al Shifa, Ms. Russell? What would you like to see happen with these premature babies?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, the issue with the babies and incubators is the incubators need electricity or fuel, right? They need, because they run on generators. So what we're advocating for is more fuel, some fuel going into Gaza. I visited, as I said, the hospital in Khan Younis, and there, you know, the incubators were working, the babies were in the incubators, but of course the doctors are planning, you know, to think about what will happen if they no longer have the electricity or the generators to fuel them. And it's obviously a huge concern. I think the answer to that is we need to get more fuel into Gaza so that we can power not just these, but other important things like the water treatment centers. And also, we need fuel just for our vehicles so that we can move around, we and other humanitarian operators, to provide services to people. So getting fuel in is absolutely critical.
Why is more fuel not going into Gaza? Why is more aid not going into Gaza? Who's preventing that from happening?
Well, I would say, you know, it's interesting because I was at the Rafah border yesterday, and there were trucks lined up as far as you can see. There is a lot going in, but more needs to go in. It needs to go in faster, and we're certainly advocating for that. I think it's, you know, it was interesting for me to see that many different organizations that were represented there trying to be helpful and trying to get aid in. And certainly the UN is doing that, UNICEF is doing that, the World Food Program, you know, different bilateral countries, everybody's trying to be helpful. It's challenging in these situations to get things moving, but I feel like, you know, there has been some progress in that front, and we just need to continue to advocate for more of it. Things, you know, move slowly in some of these places. I saw that myself yesterday. It took us a while to get in, a while to get out. So it can be challenging, but I think we just have to push as hard as we can to get as much humanitarian assistance in. It's why UNICEF has called for a humanitarian ceasefire, so we have more space to operate, that our people can get in safely and provide the humanitarian response that people there desperately need.
Okay, I know you're an international civil servant now, Ms. Russell, but your previous job was as a senior position inside the White House in Washington. Your husband is President Joe Biden's senior advisor currently. Are you hoping that the White House will hear what you're saying right now and change its policy and put more pressure on Israel to show restraint so that children in Gaza don't experience what they're experiencing currently?
Well, just one small clarification, which it's not my husband, it's my brother-in-law who works at the White House. But yes, I did work in the government. I think that we are advocating as strongly as we possibly can with everyone, everybody who has some ability to have an impact on the actors and this situation. And I think, in both cases, I think there needs to be the prioritization of children and of the innocent people who don't have anything to gain here and who suffer the most always in these conflicts. And I think all parties have to abide by humanitarian law. They have to look out and make sure that children are as protected as humanly possible in these situations. And I think that is an obligation that all of us need to hold everyone to.
So what is your message today to the international community after having been to Gaza, after having spoken to the doctors and children there? What steps would you like to see the international community, the West in particular, take in regards to this conflict?
Yeah, I would say a couple things. One, we desperately need a humanitarian ceasefire so that we can get more aid into that region. I think that it's clear that the people there are, they're a resilient group of people. I saw that yesterday, but they definitely need more help. They need water. They need, as I said, we need to get fuel in there. They need food. They need medical supplies. They need basic things like diapers, right? Which, sometimes you don't think about that, but imagine being in a situation and not having access to things like diapers and sanitary products. So I think that all of us need to say, I've said this in different ways before, but war, conflict, those are affairs of adults, right? Children have nothing to do with that. They don't start wars, they don't start conflicts, and they are powerless to stop them. And we, as the adults in the world, need to do better by children, need to look out for them and make sure that they are protected as possible in these situations. And at the end of the day, all children need peace.
What steps then is UNICEF? What steps is UNICEF going to take right now to ensure that these children are protected? What is urgently needed, and what is UNICEF going to do?
Yeah, well, as you said, we are there. We are working there. We have a lot of staff who are already in Gaza, who are from Gaza, and other international staff. We're working to provide water, to provide sanitation. We're trying to help the communities there. And we are also advocating with all parties to say we need a humanitarian ceasefire so that we can provide the services that we need for these people.
Okay, thank you for speaking to us. Catherine Russell, UNICEF's Executive Director, joining us from Cairo. Thank you for your time.